We know Mark Shotland.
Place NYC, and our FACE members. With us today from the DOE's Office of Enrollment are Josh Wallack, Deputy Chancellor of Early Childhood and Enrollment, Sarah Kleinhandler, Chief of Enrollment, and Nadia Chadha, Director of Research and Policy. They have been holding listening events throughout the city for the past 2 weeks, and we sincerely appreciate that they are here today to listen to what our members have to say. Many of the most successful schools in New York City use some form of academics-based criteria to match the needs of the students with the schools that best serve them. These criteria ensure that the students attending the schools can handle the coursework expected of them. In a city where student proficiency in reading, writing, and math vary greatly, assessing their preparedness is vital. New York City public school families want more academically strong schools. Because of the pandemic, the objective criteria commonly used in screen school admissions have been affected. The DOE is seeking community input to decide what should be used to admit students for this upcoming application season for screen schools. This one-year change will affect 4th and 7th grade families, and that is why we prioritize to hear from them tonight. To maximize the number of voices we hear, comments will be limited to 90 seconds. Many of us at Place who are CC members or members of President's Council have already spoken at public hearings, so you won't be hearing from us tonight. Instead, other Place parents will speak first, followed by 4th and 7th grade families, followed by all other members. Before I turn this over to Vito Labella to moderate our parent speakers, I'd like to welcome Josh Wallack and Sarah Kleinhandler and ask them to say a few words.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Place NYC for organizing this event. And most of all of you who are attending this evening, willing to spend your time and energy and bringing your best thinking to a challenging situation. We really, really appreciate it. My name again is Josh Wallack. I'm one of the Deputy Chancellors at the Department of Education. I support early childhood and student enrollment. And as Yatin put it, we face this epidemic has produced many challenges for us. This is an important one that we're here to discuss tonight. And that challenge is, how should selective schools handle their admissions for this fall? And that will affect students entering middle school and high school the following fall in 2021. It seems like many of you are familiar with many of the details of this, but just very quickly, typically selective schools use 3 measures, 3 academic measures: state test scores, final grades, and attendance. But this year, because of the pandemic, our grading policy has changed in order to address the trauma and dislocation that many families face and the challenges of remote learning. The state decided, for many of the same reasons, not to offer the state tests this year, not to hold them. And then because the virus was circulating in our communities before we closed school buildings, and since we're not in school buildings now, we will not be using attendance. And so the question really comes to all of us: how should selective schools make these determinations? And although we have not settled on any particular policy, we know that we want it to be fair and transparent and as simple and without burden as possible. As we travel around the city, we have heard many different points of view. They range very widely. Our hope is that by listening to as many voices as possible, we will arrive at the wisest choice we can. And our commitment to you is that when we do land on a decision, we will come back and explain what it is, but not only what it is, but why we decided to do it that way and how we arrived at that conclusion, given all the feedback that we've been gathering across the city. I'm going to stop talking because I want to leave as much time as possible for your statements, but I want to thank you again for having us tonight. And I'll just hand it over to Sarah Kleinhandler, who leads our student enrollment team. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I echo what Deputy Chancellor Wallack said. I'm looking forward to listening tonight, to hearing the thinking, and to having a conversation with you about admissions for both middle and high school for next year. So thank you again for having us.
Thank you both. Vito, I will turn the floor over to you. We have, we're only at 6:06, so hopefully we can squeeze as many parents in as possible.
Thank you, Yatin. So welcome everybody. Good evening. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Some housekeeping things. If you look at your screen, it should say recording. We are recording this, and it will be on one of our mediums, whether it be a Facebook page, YouTube channel. We will put it out there for people to view at their leisure if people feel inclined to do so. We'd also like to remind people that I'm sure that no one who's out there today is going to be disruptive or inappropriate, but if anybody is, we will be muting them and removing them from the meeting. I'm sure that's not going to happen. I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful discussion. My co-host, Chris Giordano, and I will be monitoring the chat. We'll be calling the speakers. We'll be listing them 5 at a time, and let's get right to it. Thank you very much. So the first up is Ms. Adriana Lynch.
Hello, everyone. Can I just begin, or?
Yes, it's all on you.
Okay.
So I do want to say, I'm sorry, Adriana, this is not your time, it's mine. Everybody has 90 seconds. You will hear a beep at the 90-second mark. And after that, we'll probably either mute you or maybe give you a 5-second grace period. And then anybody who wishes may submit a email comment, and we will pass that along and post that on our site as well.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Adriana, you're up and your time begins now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adriana Lynch, and I have 2 daughters who attend Louis Armstrong Middle School in District 30, Queens. I just wanted to voice my disappointment with the DOE when they decided to implement the grading policy without consulting us parents. Now parents of 4th and 7th graders are left wondering what will happen to their child's admissions process. I know with the pandemic and all of the things going on in the world today, it's just an added worry. I asked that high schools reviewing applicants for admissions review each of the applicants' entire transcript, meaning grades for 4th and 7th graders for the entire year. And this way they can make a more informed decision. I also decided to voice that I am in favor of screen schools. I truly believe that every child in the New York City public school system should have access to these programs and to match to a program that best suits their needs. This includes GNT and specialized. I have to admit that even though there is work that it comes with admissions and dealing with the admissions process, to eliminate any of these programs is not the answer. As someone who grew up in a low-income neighborhood and did go to a GNT program in junior high school, I have to say that we need more of these programs, not less. To this day, I remember our school motto, to whom much is given, much is required. Give all New York City public school students the tools that they need and watch them fly. Instead of pitting parents against each other, we should be working on an entirely new system that still includes screen schools. Start by lowering class sizes. We always hear that there's no room, no space, but yet we roll out 3K and 4K programs, so we can do it. Increase diversity in all of our schools by having all teachers of all races teaching our students. And finally, a curriculum that strives for excellence for all of our students, starting in kindergarten. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kush Das is next up.
Hello, my name is Kaushik Das. I'm co-chair of PS33 SLT, and I'm a parent of a 4th grader. In your listening series deck that was distributed to all boroughs, you say that no decisions have been made yet and that you want to hear from us. But to me, these words ring hollow. Your deck only points out the cons of grades and tests, no pros. And why doesn't it point out any cons of unscreening? I feel you are telegraphing a predetermined outcome for suspending screens. And suspending screens and driven by student choice are just euphemisms for lottery, randomization, and making all schools equally bad. You say this, even if this does happen, it is a 1-year situation, a temporary situation. It is not temporary for an entire class of rising 5th graders and 8th graders, It is their existence for 3 to 4 years and would be my daughter's. Nor do I find it a coincidence that this possible experiment would happen to align with the Chancellor's longer-term political agendas. Unscreening schools say that this costs nothing. This is in fact a fallacy. Today's screened schools don't have the staff to support a large influx of students performing below grade level, which is the implication of a 1 or a 2. You're setting these kids up to fail and the school to fail with it. Today's zoned and community schools don't have sufficient differentiation to engage a large influx of kids performing above grade level, which, for example, G&T kids of all ethnic backgrounds are. You are relegating your budding, brightest, hardworking minds to boredom and mediocrity. You are perpetuating the importing of advanced math and science degrees from all of the countries across all our business industries. And none of New York City schools have enough staff or resources to deal with a massive redistribution of special needs children of all types and races. Removing screens fails all groups. It does lower standards. It's all in the face of massive expected budget cuts, current staff hiring freezes, and a possible staggered start in the fall. This is financially and educationally irresponsible and to drastically change your policies in the middle of a crisis and will lead to an educational disaster.
Thank you, Kush.
Thank you.
Can you guys, sorry to just jump in. Can you
Nope, that's
hear
on me.
the timer go off?
I did not hear it, Jason.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I am using it, but it doesn't seem like the microphone is picking it up. So I will have to speak up when it's time then.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll give him a few seconds to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. So next up is Mr. Chris Giordano putting on his speaker hat. Go ahead,
Hi,
Chris.
I'm Chris Giordano. I'm the PTA co-president at Booker T. Washington Middle School. I'm the executive board member of District 3 President Council. I'm the co-chair of the President's Council Equity Team, and I'm here speaking for myself. I have 2 children in the New York City public school system. And I am here also helping with the stage management of the Zoom. 14 months ago, our President's Council sent a letter to the Chancellor and DOE asking for guidance on equity issues. We received no response. We enlisted help from our local electeds. We still have no meeting. Many in our community want restorative justice, implicit bias training, and culturally relevant pedagogy, and algebra for the middle school students. In District 3, about 1/3 of middle schools don't offer algebra. I'm here sincerely asking to understand and for the DOE to help manage our expectations. Is this an issue of the choice system creating a supply and demand issue? Is there a lack of professional development for teachers? Is it a management issue? Is there a lack of resources? Are the other 2/3 that are receiving algebra hoarding resources? Please help us understand what we should expect from our public school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The next up is Mr. Chen Kwok. Chen, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you very much for, thank you to Mr. Wallack and DOE for coming. My name is Chen Kwok, parent of 2 public school kids, PTA co-president of PS 111, member of PLACE. I'm a graduate of Brooklyn Tech. What I want to do tonight is report racism and discrimination in our schools and DOE. It is resulting in only 30% of Black and Hispanic students being at grade level proficiency. They are also denied academic support and other services to improve learning outcomes. And when students flee low performing schools, instead of investing in them, DOE wants to close them down due to low enrollment, like they did in PS 25 in Bed-Stuyvesant. Students below proficiency get promoted and graduate high school illiterate and enumerate, and condemning them to a bleak life outcome. Policies are set assuming that high proficiency, high performing, low income students who are Black and Hispanic don't exist. They assume that Black and Hispanic students can't succeed unless they're sitting next to white and Asian students. They withhold information from and even discourage Black and Hispanic students from applying to G&T or specialized high schools. They destroyed the pipeline of Black and Hispanic students that went to specialized high school by the thousands for 20 years every year. When they closed these schools and denied and limited access to G&T and academically matched programs in all schools, there are 10 districts with 1 or 0 G&T programs, and many districts that don't even have a single academically matched program. This forces disadvantaged minority students to commute out of district and borough to get to the education. There we have discrimination, Vice Chancellor,
Thank
racism,
you, Chris.
but don't remove screens. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Hans, you're up next. Thank you.
Hans Storer, District 2 parent, New York City Lab Middle School, elected member at large. I strongly support academic standards in education. I strongly oppose current efforts to eliminate standards, including screened admissions. My argument rests on facts, grounds of process of merit in 90 seconds or less. As to process, parents of New York City will never accept as legitimate a sham fake engagement process without a true open public process of community engagement. It is unconscionable that DOE would force through radical change to the schools during a period of pandemic, lockdown, and crisis, when our rights to public assembly are curtailed by mayoral and governor's edicts. Fact, the initial place meeting was a closed Facebook meeting conducted by ECC, a private advocacy group of closed private membership and meetings. Fact, the listening series in 5 boroughs heard from a total of 16 to 27 parents each meeting, out of a total of 400 to 750 parents each meeting who tuned in. Fact, 734 parents who participated in the Queen's meeting were excluded from speaking. Fact, of 2 hours allotted per meeting, half the time was taken by DOE officials and CEC parent leaders who have spoken elsewhere, leaving only 1 hour per meeting for community parent engagement. As to merit, we consider it a self-evident truth that schools are intended for academics. Fact, elimination of academic standards and admissions is an incentive to failure. Fact, in the real world, we live in a competitive society where education counts and achievement is rewarded. Fact, Deputy Chancellor Wallack and activists sending their own kids to screen schools evidences their endorsement of screen.
Thank you, Hans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hans. Melanie Liu? Melanie Liu, are you there? Can someone find Melanie? Is Melanie unmuted? Melanie?
And unmuted.
Hello,
yet?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Melanie?
Okay. Hi, good evening. I know that since day one that the Chancellor Karanja took the office, he's trying to get rid of all good performing schools because he and the mayor have no idea how to improve the poor performing schools. I believe you are parents also, and I believe you have the same feeling as me. We all want our kids can live in a world that the doctors can beat all virus and can have medicine to treat all diseases. We all want our kids can live in a world that more technologies can protect our environment. We don't want our kids live in a world that have violence everywhere. So please leave these screen schools and programs alone. Put the kids who cannot read proficiently or cannot do multiplication in an advanced program. Won't help them. Please do whatever you can to improve the poor performing schools and to improve the school safety for support kids from the kindergarten or first grade. Support them with the after-school programs. There are a lot DOE can do. DOE should give more, do more, and not take away. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Janie Wong? Janie, are you there?
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Hey, Jamie.
Hi, how are you? Hello, my name is Janie Wong. I have 3 kids in the New York City public schools. This school year has been like no other. For this reason, I think drastically changing the admissions policy does not serve the community at large. I know New York City public school systems are not perfect, but using the current pandemic as a means to change a system to conform to a political agenda is unfair and above all causes further anxiety and pressure for students and their families. My recommendation is to change the K-8 grading system to a no harm metric. This gives credit for 2 semesters of hard work performed by students pre-crisis. And there's no penalization for falling grades during the remote learning period, as we know all children's experiences have not been the same. The system won't create disincentive for some students and additional stresses for others. This solution provides only grading upside and no downside. I would administer 4th grade tests 2 to 3 months after schools reopen and move the whole application process later in the year. Unless schools don't physically open, the logistics should only be limited by the people power and the desire to accomplish this goal. Also, I wouldn't use third grade tests as a proxy. I think this disadvantages families whose kids are taking the test for the very first time and English language learners. Also, families have been told by teachers and principals that the third grade tests are just practice and it's a no pressure way to introduce kids to formal tests. To change this after the fact is deeply unfair. Also, I would allow middle schools to develop rubrics.
Thank you, Janie. Deborah Cross. Deborah, you there? Deborah? Deborah Cross? Do we see Deborah?
Deborah is in.
Let's see if we can unmute her. Deborah?
Can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes.
Deborah.
Oh, hello. I didn't know what to do, raise my hand or whatever.
No, that's okay. We got you. Everybody, Let me take a second here, guys. So we do have the batting order on the list. I might, when Chris posts it, I may just do a quick rundown verbally, just so people get their ears up, and then we'll proceed from there. Deborah, the time is yours. Go.
Deborah, you're on mute.
I don't know. There we go. Deborah, you should be unmuted.
That's it. I'm unmuted. Thank you. I'll make it quick. I have 3 kids, one in high school, one in middle school, one in 4th grade in District 3. And so I'm directly affected by the proposed changes for my 4th grader. I do believe that it's an unprecedented time, but I also agree that the attempt from the DOE to change this without having a real hearing process, because it doesn't sound like a hearing process to me, is very disingenuous. There are many things that have been proposed by parents as alternatives, whether it's using first and second marking periods, last year's test, having tests next year, and the schools even have their own tests and assessment methods. I mean, if a child doesn't have state tests, it doesn't mean they can't apply to middle school and high school. So I think we are being disingenuous by saying, oh, we have no metrics whatsoever, we can't use metrics. Second, I do think removing screens poses problems in terms of commuting. There are priorities in high school, and that's an issue also. I mean, does that mean that if you remove screens, your child can be sent at the other side of town to go to school? I don't think that's right. Same at the district level for middle school. So my recommendation is for middle school, just leave it to the districts to decide what to do, even though you can give guidance. And for high school, I would recommend just sticking to the prior method, maybe something modified in terms of metrics for assessment, letting schools decide how to admit students. But I don't think eliminating screens and going full lottery is the right methodology here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next up is Janet Pouchot. Janet?
Hi, it's Jill Cote.
Oh, I apologize. Did I jump you? I apologize, Jill.
You did, but you unmuted the right one.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. In 2015, President Obama passed the Every Student Succeeds Act, known as ESSA, a legislation to redesign accountability for education. Obama's ESSA provides a framework for great schools. The first element is rigorous instruction to drive student achievement. Screen schools provide a homogeneous grouping to easily apply rigorous instruction. ESSA goal is to illuminate potential approaches to developing more balanced systems for our children's productivity, not apply a lottery of one size fits all. The ESSA requires measurement of students' achievement for ELA and math, the first indicator how the DOE is failing many of our communities. In 2019, New York City had a 47 ELA proficiency and 45% in math, but the DOE deflects these failures. Instead, they push an agenda to eliminate screen schools, which are successful, and attack the families who want them. The ESSA speaks to indicators of engagement, measuring attendance, which attributes to students' achievement, but the DOE shamed District 2 positive attendance to promote the agenda to eliminate screen schools. The ESSA measures parent engagement because parents and community members play an essential role in student and school success. Again, the DOE assailed District 2 and suggested our PTAs create an unfair advantage. The DOE should focus on how to create more engagement in the schools and communities in need. All children's educational needs should be met with adequate and appropriate resources. For some, this is free schools. The DOE should shift focus on applying the principles of Obama's Every Student Succeeds Act for our communities in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Janet's up next, but before we start with Janet, we have Mara Seltza on deck, Donglei Huang, Paul Eng, Ore, and Helen Yu. So if I mentioned your name, we'll unmute you, and then you could get ready to go. So right now, Janet, you're up.
And first and foremost, thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. No one does that, so I appreciate it.
My wife's name is Kim Jallet, so I understand.
My husband's from France, so. Well, hello everyone. I'm the mother of 4 children, all of which have gone through the New York City public school application process several times as they've moved from pre-K all the way through high school, and I have 2 in college, which was a much easier process. Each and every time applying to many schools, all with some kind of screens in place, including academic, performing arts, dual language. This has meant for the better part of 2 decades, I've had 4 children in 4 different schools. And this has allowed me to experience firsthand that screening can have a very positive effect in placing children where they thrive best. Screens have had an important and positive effect on my children as well as their peers. Even though my children certainly didn't always have their first choice, they always ended up in a school environment that best suited them. Over the years, I've developed faith and great appreciation for the system. Please don't dismiss it. My suggestion for next admission year is to use the best metrics of attendance, grades, state test scores from this year, this school year, and last. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Mara, you're up.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Okay, great. I think we're forgetting why, or the DOE is forgetting why screens were started in the first place. People were leaving New York City for the suburbs because there weren't enough good schools. There weren't enough academically challenging schools for academically challenged children who needed that type of motivation and, you know, rigor. And I believe strongly that if we eliminate screens, we are going to lose a lot of the taxpayer dollars that fund not only education, but other necessities in the city. Do we want to see that? We've already seen an outflow, a pouring out to the charter schools because the schools are not up to the rigor that these parents are demanding. I myself had daughters in charter schools. They're currently now in the public school system in exceptional schools. I would not have moved them out of the charter system if we did not have exceptional schools in the public system. I want to also state that I don't understand how we expect students to be continuously motivated to do their work and do their best by going to possibly subpar or even failing school in potentially another borough far away from where they live. Not a lot of parents would be motivated to send their children there and will take other options of either leaving the city or going to the charter route or even private if they possibly can afford it or get a scholarship. I want to know why that a 65% average should count as the same as 100%. It doesn't make any sense at all. We want to make the future doctors, lawyers, and other, you know, leaders of the future, or we will not by sending our academically strong kids to subpar schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mara. Donglei Huang? Donglei? I don't see him on the list. Does anybody see Donglei?
I see a Leon Huang. I don't know if that's her or him.
Donglei?
Can't unmute.
I'm scrolling, trying to find a Donglei. I don't see it.
You can,
okay, we'll move on to the next one. Paul Eng. Paul?
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Paul, welcome.
Hi, thank you. This is my first time. I just want to echo my agreement with Janice Huang about some of his suggestions. I have a daughter who is in 7th grade and interested in attending the screened school, such as Townsend Harris. Now, normally the school report use the report card score and the state test as a criteria to screen the incoming students. Since this year, the state tests are canceled or suspended. Now, I would like to suggest either the 6th grade state test can be used as substitute, or if possible, when the 4th semester comes, the state test can restart it early in the 4th semester, and the screened school can then use the state test from the 4th semester. And also I want to suggest that the marking period 3 score can be used as well for as part of the selection criteria. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much, Paul. So, may I, Oreo, Ore, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I'm here.
How you do, yeah, ma'am? May I ask you to
I'm
state
here.
your name? Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can hear me.
Yes, ma'am. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. May I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm speaking from a practical and parental perspective. We are parents to a high achieving 7th grader in District 2 who has worked hard independently all year to achieve and maintain excellent grades and attendance. As parents who are both essential workers in this extremely trying period, as we all understand, this has been mostly due to her independent effort. And it has been heartbreaking to us to see this all flushed down the drain. We are not rich and we do not have tutors. To further complicate the matter at hand for our family, she is new to the New York City public system this year. She has no 6th grade state test to rely on. 7th grade is what we were depending on, and those were canceled. If we go to a lottery system, what if she ends up in a borough far removed from our home? What happens when a curfew suddenly is announced and we're 2 hours from getting her home safely? For example, last evening, a good friend of mine who works in an emergency room in Brooklyn was denied access getting back to her home in Manhattan, despite having the appropriate work IDs to get back into Manhattan. So in this uncertain environment, why would we add any more chaos to our children's lives? So please consider the impact this will have on students and families. Please let us focus on actually restructuring the elementary school system rather than break down and destroy the work and aspiration of current 7th graders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Helen Hugh. Helen, you there?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yep. Helen, thank you. Your video is a little off, but we can hear you fine.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a 7th grader at home. I have 2 doubts about Mr. Wallack's earlier presentation at the Barrows, and one point to make. So you mentioned that students perform worse in marking periods comparing to final grades. That doesn't make sense to me because it seems to suggest that over 50% of students with low-income backgrounds suddenly make a big stride in the last 2 marking periods, and a significant amount of high-income students suddenly do much worse in the last 2 marking periods. I'm wondering how the result was derived. As a person dealing with numbers every day, it is extremely puzzling to me. And second point, regarding your report that 1 out of 6 7th graders perform at least 1 level worse on 6th grade state tests, remember that these 6th graders are competing with their peers, not with themselves. Some people say that 6th grade is the transition year, but we have to remember it is the transition year for every 6th grader. I grew up, the third point I want to make, I grew up in extreme poverty according to today's standard. To say the least, I had to carry my toddler brother to school and sit on the bare floor in the classroom with broken window and broken roof most of the time during my early elementary school years. However, despite all the long-term hardship, I managed to get a decent education like most of my childhood classmates. What's my point here? My point is this is a time that we need to raise strong Americans, not snowflake Americans. I strongly against suspending the screening school admission due to the risk of demotivating our students to learn. And we cannot turn this short-term public health crisis into a long-term public education crisis. So please don't suspend the screening school admission.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm sorry, thank you, Helen. So before we go, we have the next 5, Michelle Kaufman, Liza Wiles, Martha G. O'Day, Jin Q, and Man Yi. So if I mention your name, get ready to go. And now we have Michelle S. Kaufman. Michelle, you're up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, ma'am. Go ahead.
So I have twin 7th graders, so this is a very important issue for me. And they have been working so hard this whole year because they know what is at stake. And they are very upset that grades have been pretty much thrown out. And, you know, it seems to me, I know Josh put forth, like the last speaker said, you know, slides already coming prepared to discount that as an option. So I'm really hoping that you're listening to all of the options that everyone's bringing to the table, because everyone is in the same boat. Everybody knew this was the pivotal year, that the grades counted for this, and to just throw it out doesn't seem fair or right, as it really captures students' performance. And I really felt that the do no harm policy was the fairest policy, because some students do better working from home in that kind of environment. A lot of them, I know people didn't have access or whatever, but the do no harm seemed to make the most sense to me. And I really think that the screen schools are very important, because you really need to meet the academic needs and challenges for each child. And if you throw out screens, you're going to put students into an environment, into demanding, rigorous programs where they're going to flail and flounder. And nobody is talking about the aftermath of that. So you're going to put in students into these demanding programs like in Elro or Townsend Harris. How are they going to succeed? What is going to be put in place to make those students perform well? How could you put someone with a 7-day average in a high demand school like that? It doesn't seem to make any sense. I grew up in the public school system here. I went to Midwood in the Humanities Institute, and I know what a demanding, rigorous program that was. And I can't imagine a child with a 70 average being in a program like that. No one is
Michelle.
And I think there's been so much trauma going on. We cannot further have more trauma by throwing everything out the window right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Next up, Liza Wiles. Liza.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I am a parent of a 7th grader and a 4th grader, so work in the high school and middle school applications right now. My 7th grader is a G&T student, my 4th grader is a Gen Ed student, and I am a graduate of Townsend Harris High School, and I know that when I was growing up, there weren't tracked G&T schools. Every elementary school, you went to your local school, and the school found the right environment for you to learn. So I want to just take my time to say that I'm going to uncouple the whole idea of screens from the idea of screens for the coming year and admissions for the coming year, given the pandemic situation. What I haven't heard yet is from the high school and middle schools. What are current high schools, screen middle schools doing with their current student body population to help them stay on track in their current academic careers? Because that to me is informative, not only for a parent but for children to know, like, what is it going to be expected of the current students as they're applying in this strange time. That should be taken into account. I want to hear from the schools. And I feel like that's a voice that has been severely missing from this conversation. And if we're going to be considering how we're going to continue the quality education for all students, I think it's only fair that the dialogue is working in both directions. Thank you.
And thank you, Eliza.
Thank you. Martha, you up there?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I have a 3rd grader and a 7th grader in District 3. I understand there's inequity in the New York City school system, and this is a long-standing problem with no simple solutions. Some schools and districts have implemented changes recently to address this problem, and they should be allowed to continue those efforts and measure their results. I don't believe the DOE should try and address these long-standing inequities as part of the pandemic crisis management plan. It's just not the right time. In my opinion, for screened admissions, the DOE should allow students to submit 2 data points of their choice from a prescribed list of grades and test scores from prior year and current year. And if that's not humanly possible due to system limitations, then I support holding tests in the fall and pushing back the admission cycle. I believe the SHSAT should commence as planned. To assign kids by lottery, as has been suggested, is ridiculous to me and seems akin to assigning students to college by lottery. And as we all come together in the future to continue to address inequity, I believe a priority should be access to advanced AP and IB curriculum in more schools so that students who want it have access to a college prep curriculum. And until that happens, and until there's equity across districts, I believe that all high school district priorities should be removed so that all screened high schools are citywide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Jin Q?
Hi, I have two children in public school, and I come here to support the screen schools. And I think, you know, those are the students who study hard, they have perfect school attendance, and they're serious about studying, and they work hard. So they want the opportunity to continue to academically more challenged academically. Screen school is hard work. It's probably even harder than the middle school. The high school screen school is harder probably than middle school. You know, those if we send the student who do not academically not capable of studying in those schools, it will be not fair for all the students, and that will also destroy the screen school. You know, this is not a party place, it's not candy store, it's a hardworking, it's serious school. And I think the rubrics, we can use last year's state test, or we plus the first and second semester grades. Those are before the COVID. And also, I think those are universal scores and they're fair. And I think, you know, politicians should leave politics, leave children alone. Children should be treated with kindness and with fairness.
Thank you, Jen.
Politics is politics.
Thank you so much. Before we go to the next speaker, Cara Montesano, Robert McGraw, Andy Weinstein, Neelesh Shah, and Sanjay Soni should all get ready to go after our next speaker, Man Yi. Man Yi, you there?
I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to just jump into what I wrote that I didn't get a chance to edit, so I hope it makes sense. Just to give you some background, I'm a native New Yorker. I've been here since the 70s. I've gone through the whole public school system from kindergarten through 12th grade in Brooklyn. We come from a poor immigrant family, single parent home, and we somehow made it through all the challenges that we've had. The key to getting out of this poverty has been getting a relatively decent education. I didn't go to screen schools, I didn't go to Shazat, but back then, schools cared, educators cared, teachers cared. Teachers knew what was going on in the classroom and they helped each child. Each child, as an individual, has their own path. When a school fails, it's because those teachers have not been able to reach each child. It's not because a screen school was available. It wasn't because Shazat was available. It had nothing, the failures had nothing to do with all those screenings and all those tests. The failures came from the whole community not supporting that child. So when you are trying to take away screenings, you're failing the students that are doing fine and doing well. The ones that are not doing well, that's where you should put your focus. You should be putting your money and your words to help the schools that are failing their students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manyi. Cara Montesano.
Hi there.
Hey, Cara.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I think it's very important, and I know these are challenging times, so it's not easy for any of us. and I think we all recognize there's no one size fits all for 1.1 million students, right? And so the DOE, I recognize you guys have a daunting task. I do have 3 sons. The oldest is in 4th grade. So as we all know, he's been working hard all year and continues to do so. And to be honest, you know, he may not even meet the metrics for these very selective schools. He's trying to, and we hope that he does, but that may not happen. Regardless of that, I think keeping these screens is the best thing, the best path forward. It is putting a high bar on our kids' education. It gives an aspirational nature to the high academic standards that I think all parents will say they want for their children. I recognize it's, again, a daunting task, but I do believe that with all the data that you have provided to us, Josh, there could be a new metric that takes into account some tests and some grades with you know, some mathematical adjustments. And I think that could be a reasonable path forward, and doesn't discredit all the work that they have put in to date. I recognize that essays or teacher recommendations or interviews with schools is very tough, but I do think that will keep the ethos of each school and help us move forward. So
thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you so much. Robert McGraw, are you there? Robert.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Hi, good evening. I'm a proud parent of a multiracial 4th grader that attends PS 41 alongside Kara's student as well. To be clear, we're all committed to addressing the social equity issues that have persisted for decades, but the pandemic did not create the shortfall of high quality schools within the city. I am a strong advocate of the proposal that was set forth by CEC2, which calls for screened admissions. Each screened school should be allowed to modify their admissions rubrics to best reflect the strengths and characteristics of their school while still relying on the first 2 grading periods and the results for the current trimester of digital learning. I'm really, like many of the families on here, suspect around the genuine nature of listening through the town hall process, especially when the chancellor's been on record being proud to say that it never wastes a good crisis to transform a system. This is not the time to prematurely rush through radical change under the guise of social equity. We really need to recognize the hard work that students have been putting in over the full 3 trimesters, and really consider admissions policies and practices that are modified for this digital trimester, but still allow for admissions based on student merit and achievement. Thank you for your time.
Perfect timing. Thank you.
Andy, are you there? Andy Weinstein?
Yep, I'm here.
Andy, go.
Hi, my name is Andy Weinstein. I have 3 children in District 3 public schools. I'm also co-chair of the SLT at MS54 Booker T. The views I express here are my own. The question on the table, right, is how we mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on next year's admissions process, which schools and families are already preparing for. Eliminating screens is an unnecessarily drastic solution to this discrete question that will cause significant disruption and burden for our schools and will make it more difficult for them to meet the needs of students. Adapting to changes in admissions policies is difficult enough even in a normal environment. After District 3 adopted its middle school diversity plan 2 years ago, schools like Booker T have spent enormous time and effort adapting to meet the needs of a student body with a broader range of academic needs. And while the District 3 changes were significant, they were modest compared to the proposal to eliminate screens. If schools and students can no longer match with one another, every middle school and high school in the city, both screened and unscreened, will need to revamp their academic programs and reallocate already stretched resources to try to meet the needs of an entering class that are far broader and more complex than what they are currently prepared for. We can debate whether having each school be all things to all students is the right long-term goal, but mandating such a transformation from one year to the next is not only unrealistic, but it will be enormously disruptive and burdensome for our schools at a time they can least afford it. Principals and staff have been working tirelessly through this crisis, and next year promises to be just as challenging. Right now, we need our schools to focus on meeting the basic needs of their students. Let's not make it more difficult for them. DOE should give schools guidance and access to a broader set of student performance data, but also the flexibility to determine for themselves how to modify their criteria to address what is hopefully a one-time issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Neelesh Shah. Neil?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Neil.
Okay, great. My name is Neelesh Shah. I'm a parent of a 7th grader and a 9th grader in District 1 in Manhattan. Probably going to be in the minority here, but in my personal opinion, for the 2021 school year, once the decision was made by the DOE and Mayor de Blasio to eliminate both grades and attendance, I think it becomes very unfair to the entire student body for alternative screens to now be considered and put in place to mimic criteria that were already in place. I believe that all screen schools should be eliminated for the 2021 school year. This includes not only grades, attendance, and state test scores, but also the interviews and school-specific tests that are in place at schools such as Bard, Tompkins Square, Beacon, ICE, etc. It would be unfair to continue to allow these schools to use interviews and testing as an avenue to handpick their incoming cohort, while other screen schools would not be afforded the same opportunity. In place of these screens, I think it is imperative that screen schools provide a clear description of the curriculum of their schools, previous test score ranges and criteria, as well as a clear understanding of what is expected of their student body from an academic perspective. Students and parents are bright enough to self-select the schools that provide them with an opportunity to succeed. They chose to go in that direction. If I were to include certain screens, they would err more towards the type of extracurricular activities and sports that our students are interested in pursuing to ensure that they are matched at schools that provide them that opportunity. For instance, it would be a shame for a swimmer not to be in a school that has a swim team, or a student who's interested in either orchestra or band not to be matched there. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much. So before we go to Sanjay, the 5 up in the batting box are Ila Gupta, Hunter Dare, Anna Vasileva, Kelly Eng, and Michelle Lee. If I called your name, be ready. And next up, we have Sanjay Soni. Sanjay, you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yes. In this kind of situation that we all are facing, there are 2 things which carry us forward. One is the clear focus and some kind of out-of-box thinking. I think DOE doesn't have a focus right now. The focus should be 100% on how to open the school rather than anything else. How to open the school and keep them safe and secure for all the students and our parents. There are all kind of ways which will come out. The out-of-box thinking is coming out in all across the world. We don't have a plan. I don't see the plan in the biggest city of the most powerful country in the world. I see everywhere, every country I'm seeing, there's a plan to open the school. And the O-level and L-level exams have been postponed. Like in India, where I come from, there's a very crucial time to get admitted to the most competitive exams, engineering and medical exams. They have postponed it for 2 months. Why can't we conduct the state test in September and fall or October sometime? The admissions are in April. This far, far away. As far as the screening of the school, schools using the screens to give admission, it's a clear demand and supply game. There's too many students who want to join too few schools they consider to be good. Why don't you increase the number of schools and make them better? Increase the supply of those schools. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Ila Gupta? Ila Gupta, you're there? We're looking for Ila. Ila, are you there? Okay then, Hunter Dare. Hunter Dare? I see you there. Hunter, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to relate a story about Jackie Reads a Lot. She learned faster than most other kids. Her teachers differentiated instruction for some of the more advanced kids, but that wasn't enough to challenge Jackie. She ended up skipping 3rd grade, then 6th. That was a better academic fit, but a terrible social and emotional fit. But it was the best that teachers could do because Jackie's school district didn't have any specialized classes that allowed her and similar learners to come together and learn at accelerated paces. It would be easy this year to eliminate selective admissions and justify it because some people with privilege abuse the admissions process. Other government programs are also abused, but no one says let's eliminate public assistance programs These programs provide essential lifelines to families who truly need it. Similarly, selective admissions schools provide an educational lifeline to truly advanced learners. Without selective admissions programs, these kids never learn to work hard because school is so easy for them, or worse, they are so bored that they mentally check out and perform poorly or become disruptive discipline problems. At best, they end up like Jackie, teaching themselves, working alone, or skipping grades and never fitting in socially. Gifted programs provide this up through 5th grade, but most of those programs end there. Teachers do not have the bandwidth to teach Jackie 2 years above grade level and other kids 2 years behind grade level. NYC needs middle and high schools that can meet the needs of the 30 or 40,000 Jackies in our system. And if there are privileged kids who unfairly join Jackie in her classes, let's figure out how to best identify the Jackies for this COVID year rather than deny the Jackies the education they desperately need.
Thank you, Hunter. I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I'm mindful of time. We're coming 3 minutes to the hour. And Josh, we still have a few more parents that would love to. Would you be kind enough to stay on and listen to them? I'm seeing you nod your head, but thank you.
Yes, I can stay on yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's continue, Vito.
Thank you, Josh. Anna Vasileva. Anna, let me look for you. I don't see Anna in the left. There you are. Anna, you there? You're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
We can hear you.
Okay, actually I see the problem. I just entered my apartment. I'm sorry, I'm an essential worker. I always finish work late and I'm leaving the meeting on my phone. Yes, so can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you for taking the time out today. Your time is yours. Go.
Hello?
Go, Anna.
Yes, okay. So I'll be very brief. First of all, I agree with 99% of the speakers on this forum. I'm an immigrant who did not grow in New York. I did not grow up here, but I grew up in a very competitive education system. And I must say, the education system I came from was very equitable. You worked hard, you forged ahead. You did not, you just fell behind, and if you didn't care, you didn't care. I don't want to teach my kid otherwise. And this is where we fall in the situation where you're speaking of income disparity being attached to education. Education is supposed to elevate. There are a lot of children out there who worked very hard. They were hoping to elevate themselves through middle and high school admissions to get out of really difficult situations at home. And now you've robbed them of this opportunity. You've told them their hard work didn't matter. Well, how would it feel when right now you're at the head of DOE, you're deciding everyone's future with this admission policy, and somebody told you that all of the experience, all the cumulative process that got you where you are does not matter. You just got out of, let's say, high school, and they put you at level with everyone else. And you're going for a job interview tomorrow. Now think about this when you're to decide the new admission policy, that these kids really work very hard. That's all I need to tell you. Relate to them.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. Kelly Eng. Kelly, are you there? Kelly? I'm looking for Kelly. I don't see her. Okay.
I don't see her either. Let's go on to the next
let's go on to
speaker.
the next list. So let me pause. The next 5 up are Michelle Lee, Inga Smolja, David O, Rosa C, and Hernando Cortina. So if I mentioned your name, you're in the batting circle. And right now we have Michelle Lee. Michelle, you're up. But I don't see her on the list, do I? Michelle, you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Welcome, Michelle.
All right, thank you for having me, and thank you, Josh, for staying on a little bit longer to listen to us. So I'm a public school parent, and I am a resident in, like many others, I'm concerned that the DOE will use the COVID crisis to change the existing admission standards without a plan in place to serve high-achieving learners. I think we've heard a lot from folks here that no one denies that the state and the quality of schools and resources are lopsided. However, the question that the DOE needs to answer is, what will the DOE do to improve the quality of the existing schools so we don't have such high levels of dissatisfaction with the education our children are receiving? Why are there 32,000 kids who test into the GNT for only 2,500 seats? I think that stat alone is pretty sobering on why there are so few pipelines for people of color to improve, because frankly, there's just not enough high quality education, and we have parents and groups that are pitted against each other just to fight over very few high quality seats. Just for some historical context, in 1989, Brooklyn Tech was 51% Black and Latino, but when those communities had their GNT programs eliminated, the percentages of students of color also decreased to the point where we are at today. I think it's important to look at these historical reasons why the numbers are as bad as they are, and to think about what the DOE can do to put further resources to help different communities instead of having—
Thank you, Michelle. Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Inga Smolja, are you there, Inga?
Yes, hello?
Hi, Inga. You're unmuted.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you for having me, and thank you, Josh, for staying on longer to listen to all of us. I'm a parent of 3 children in the New York City public school system, a 1st grader, a 4th grader, and a 7th grader. I'm also a member of the District 20 Community Education Council. However, my comments here are my own. I want to relay that 4th and 7th graders are now feeling additional stress and anxiety due to this uncertainty that currently clouds middle and high school admissions. Children, all children in these grades have worked very hard this school year based on the simple understanding that 4th and 7th grade are very important years. It is simply not fair to them to use this moment in time to push forward politically motivated policies that remove academic criteria from admissions. Instead, the DOE should show that it values the needs of all students and should continue to support academically based admission criteria, while frankly working to improve the quality of all schools at every grade level. Given that school was in session pre-COVID conditions through March, my suggestion is that those grades and frankly attendance records could be used, as can possibly 3rd grade state test results. Alternatively, the DOE could consider leaving it up to the districts to decide. This could be an equitable, objective, and fair solution that would not simply ignore all of the hard work that students put in and continue to put into their academic excellence. To reiterate, this is not the moment to drastically change without notice admission requirements for next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Inga.
Thank you. David O, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dave.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. It means a lot that you're coming to listen to us during a tumultuous and sad time, especially for the African-American community. I'm a product of New York City's public schools, grew up with a single mom in poor neighborhoods in Jamaica, Queens, and East New York. And I've always wished for my kids to experience what I thought was a wonderful experience as opposed to a private school education. So as someone who had a really positive experience with New York City public schools starting over 30 years ago, imagine my disappointment when I see what's happened to our schools in terms of their average quality and lack of diversity, but also how certain people are trying to label common sense ideas such as merit, academic achievement, academic standards as dirty words in some way. I strongly believe that the anger and pushback you're seeing from parents over these schools is not because these parents are racist or elitist, but it's because they see just how poor the quality of education is in an average New York City school, which is absolutely racist, because the lack of focus on schools in the poorest neighborhoods has created and exacerbated the outcome we have today. If the average New York City school showed 90% of its students were performing at grade level, we wouldn't be arguing over screen schools. The DOE is responsible for why average New York City schools are doing so poorly, not parents. Your job should be to fix the average New York City school and raise academic standards so parents feel less stressed about getting into a screen school or not. But also, you guys need to hold yourselves accountable. To my knowledge, nobody at the DOE gets fired for doing a bad job or letting academic results decline to such an extent. Please do the right thing and fix your schools, starting with smaller class sizes, paid for by cutting all the newly added layers of administrative excess at the DOE, and put in place a system of penalizing yourselves for not meeting goals and doing a bad job. Thank you.
Time. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Rosa C. Rosa, you
Yeah.
there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a mom of 2 New York City public school kids, and I fully support preserving schools with academic-based admissions using measures that are objective and transparent. Schools should use attendance records and marking period grades accumulated before the shutdown and state test scores from last year. Our kids have all worked hard and should be recognized for the efforts they put in for the first 2/3 of the year. We should not be taking away opportunities and choices from families and kids in the name of fairness and equity. That will help no one and will be detrimental for all New York City families. The DOE should focus on educating our kids first and foremost. Teach them so they can all read, write, and do math at their grade level or better. Provide remediation and support where needed, and challenge all of our kids with a rigorous academic curriculum that bring out their full potential. We need the DOE to focus on improving the quality of the education that our kids get, expanding the number of high-quality schools throughout the city, and not just trying to shuffle our kids around based on the false sense of fairness and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. We're looking for Hernando. I don't see him in the list. Hernando, are you there somewhere? Hernando? Okay, then moving on. Jennifer Wallenetz. Jennifer? I see 2 Jennifers. I see 3 Jennifers. Jennifer?
Hang on.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Josh, Mr. Wallack, for staying on. Hi, everyone. I'm a parent of a 1st and 5th grader and an advocate for accelerated learning for children of all colors, races, ethnicities, and identifiers. I would continue to use some academic and personal behavior markers in the short run until we have a better system in place. Screens highlight the problem in K-5. They don't cause them. I think there's a way to combat systemic racism and raise the academic bar for our students, and that would not happen through a general lottery. A lottery will only mask the ongoing inefficiencies, disparities, and racism. And it takes away from the uniqueness of the schools in pairing students with their preferred pedagogy and school culture. We need to ensure that all schools have access to strong curriculum and support differentiation of students above and below grade standards. As much as we hear this and it's happening today, it's not true, and school enrollments are suffering as a result, with a disproportionate impact on the communities of color. A lottery essentially says that all schools are equally appropriate for every child. Mr. Wallack, with all due respect, your opinion on the lottery would have held more weight for me if you sent your own child to any school in your district, but you opted out. To me, that says that none of the schools are good for your child, and we need the action of our DOE leaders to match the philosophy. Having an example of a lottery, though, please provide the data on D15 over the last 6 months. Are the students relating more? Are they exchanging ideas, eating lunch together, or are they divided under the same roof? Do the teachers have the support and resources they need to educate their students at each level? I think it would be very meaningful to present any data on the academics and satisfaction of the student body in D15. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Maxim Adelman. Maxim?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes. Great. I'm a father of 2 kids in the school system. I listened to the Brooklyn COVID-19 public forum the other day and was just amazed by how mostly every CC rep was repeating the same ideological line about how screen schools are racist in nature and how screens should be eliminated, not just suspended for the year. If we're talking about COVID-19 specific accommodations, and if DOE is acting in good faith, the answer is simple. Use all the metrics you can get your hands on, prior grades, prior tests, whatever. These metrics won't be perfect, but they'll be able to establish merit. Everything else I will say is in defense of screen schools. The reason there is inequity in kids admitted to screen middle and high schools is there is inequity in the level of achievement in lower grades, right? Removing the screens rather than closing that achievement gap would simply sweep the achievement gap under the rug, hide the symptoms, allow DOE to pat itself on the back and let the disease resurface at college admissions or in workplace interviews. UPK was a good step towards closing the achievement gap, but it hasn't been given a chance to show its impact, and I'm not aware of any other such efforts. At the same time, there is well-expressed hostility from current administration towards GNP programs that in the past were able to close achievement gaps for those kids who were enrolled in them throughout all the city neighborhoods. If screens are to be suspended or scrapped, DOE should be ready to answer in great detail how exactly high-achieving students and kids who do not perform at the grade level will be accommodated in the same school. Individualized instruction in the class of 30 kids is the stuff of science fiction, in my opinion. So I think there's only 3 ways this can be handled that I'm familiar with. One, which was the Soviet way, which the way that I learned, set a high standard for everyone, let anyone who can't keep up fail out, and go to vacationals.
Aye.
The second way, the SFUSD way, lower the standards. The third way, intra-school tracking. DOE should say which way they want to do this.
Thank you, Maxim. We have to run. Next up is Isabella Goldmintz. Isabella?
Hi.
Hello. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. I'm District 2 parent with 3 children who went to zone schools, to selective schools, and to specialized schools. So I just wanted to say pretty much many points that other parents said. The reason academically selective schools exist is because by middle school and especially by high school, our students can be several grades apart academically. And in middle school and in high school, it is impossible to teach kids who are several grades apart in the same classroom. While it can be possible if they're 1 grade apart, several grades is impossible. You cannot teach pre-algebra and calculus within the same classroom. It's not an elementary school. So by eliminating screen, you're putting kids by lottery in the schools that cannot serve them. So schools need to adjust their curriculum. Schools need to figure out very quickly how to serve kids of different abilities. And that's probably not going to happen unless you're willing to put an enormous resource, which you're saying that you don't have. We have budget cuts. So I propose to keep screens, academic screens only. I'm not talking about any other screens like portfolio interviews, academic screens, and probably get the selection of first 2 terms of grades, maybe combination with prior year tests, or maybe no harms, like let the kids select 2 best grading periods from their 4th and 7th. But keep the screens just because logistically to change schools and how they serve their specific population would be very, very difficult.
Thank you, Isabella.
Thank you, Isabella. So we have 1 more left, Mr. Robert Wang. But before Robert says his last, the last speaker of the evening, I want to thank everybody, including the DOE officials, Sarah and Josh, as well as all of our parent representatives for coming in here and taking the time. Josh, thank you so much for staying late. And now, please, let's hear from Robert Wang, and then Yatin will close us out.
Well, actually, Lucas will close us out, and yes, we will wrap it up. And Josh, thank you for staying. We will probably be done definitely by 7:30.
All right, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I'm a District 22 parent, and I've been through the public school system in New York City and New York State through college, graduate Stuyvesant. First of all, I don't believe there's such a thing as a 1-year implementation of any change of this magnitude. I think that once it's implemented, it would be impossible or near impossible to reverse course if that decision is made at that point. Secondly, I think we all want our children to have a better future with more opportunities than we did. The goal and responsibility of every parent is right in front of us. We teach our children to have goals, to work hard, and to continuously improve themselves so that they're prepared as young adults and then adults. We teach them that hard work leads to opportunities and their success is impacted by no one but themselves. What should be considered is to address the school system as a whole to ensure all students have the same access to the high quality education. Fix K-8, offer G&T to every school, and set the bar high enough for our children to aspire to. This is not a T-ball league where everybody gets a trophy at the end. What's decided at this stage will impact our children for a long time. By removing screening and testing, what are we teaching our kids? That effort and hard work are not important? What happens when they get into college and then have to compete for jobs afterwards? The problem is not screens and tests. The problem is the lack of consistent quality in all the schools. And I think part of the funding problems that the DOE is facing right now is very important to address. Here's an idea: cut the bloat from the DOE. You have nine executive superintendents costing over $2.5 million a year in salaries, not including their support staff. That money can be spent and redirected to underperforming schools, hire better teachers, train our existing teachers, and cure the problem. Don't treat it. Okay, thank you.
Very much, Robert.
Thank you so much for our last speaker, Lucas Liu, our co-president. Please take it away.
Hi. Wow. Well, I want to first say thank you everybody for coming tonight, and also want to thank Josh and Sarah for coming this evening and staying longer. We all really do appreciate that, and I do have to say your stamina is incredibly impressive with all the meetings that you all have been holding. I do want to say, over the last few weeks, parents across the racial and socioeconomic spectrum have clearly demonstrated that there is a significant interest and concern for preserving academic-based admissions. And although the state canceled the math and ELA exams and the DOE announced the elimination of attendance and final marking period grades as part of the criteria, we should all continue to work towards developing the necessary multiple solutions that meet the academic needs of all students across the entire learning spectrum. There is no one size fits all. And in the data that was presented, it shows, you mentioned that students perform worse in the marking period grades when compared to the final grades, and that may be true. I don't dispute that, but I think we also know that teachers grade harder earlier on so that they can show improvement throughout the year, since schools and principals are under pressure from the DOE to show impact and growth as the school year progresses. So, and as was mentioned before, these changes aren't temporary for everyone. For the roughly 80,000 fourth graders, 80,000 seventh graders, these effects are permanent. And to change it at the last minute is a bit unfair for those families and creates a new burden for those families to work through. Because of COVID-19 and remote learning, the range of learners in a single classroom will be wider than normal years. And that's going to require additional resources in the classroom that currently, even under the $34 million budget, doesn't work. And with the budget cuts coming up, I think we all know that it's not going to be realistic. So, the question does become, how does a teacher, how can a teacher be expected to teach the equivalent of 2 or 3 grade levels in a single classroom? And that just winds up penalizing all students, as instruction time, for each subject will be reduced to just minutes for each level of student. So, what I'd like to leave tonight with, Josh, if you could, we would like to request that the DOE present its admission proposal publicly and then hold a public hearing on that, so that parents, guardians, students, who are all sides of the discussion can provide comment on something that would no longer be a hypothetical. It would be actually something that they can comment on. And is that something that you can guarantee to all of us, or offer all of us, that the parents will have a chance to review that proposal before it becomes final?
Thanks very much. We have not outlined sort of the process of how we're going to roll this out. So I can't commit at this moment, but I do hear you loud and clear, and you're one of a few groups that have asked that question just in the last 24 hours. So I will take that back and get back to you quickly. I would also, I don't know if you have more to say, but I can jump in now if that's just to say thank you, if that's okay.
Go
yes?
right ahead.
So
yeah.
I just want to close by saying, from our side, that is, by saying we so appreciate the time and energy and thought that you put into presenting tonight, and for joining us here to think through this issue. As I said at the outset, we have not made any decisions, and we're trying our best to listen and learn from as many people as we can across the city. I'm grateful to you I'm grateful to you for giving us the chance to listen to you this evening. I wanted to just say that also we have one more citywide session for those who were not able to make one of the 5 that we held, or for whatever reason there were technical issues at one. So we are doing another one on Monday, June 10th, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we will put the information in the chat box so you'll have it, and also just send it out to make sure you have it. But if you know of other people that want to participate, please encourage them to do so, or just email us at enrollmentfeedback@schools.nyc.gov. I know that you all have some requests for data into us, and we're going to send those to you shortly. We've been working on them, so that will be there soon. And just thanks again. I know this is it's a challenging subject at a very challenging moment for the city. So thanks for taking the time, and look forward to continuing the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We had, I think, over 170 participants. So I'm so happy that so many parents took the time on a Thursday evening around dinner to join us today. Thank you, Vito. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Josh, Sarah, and Nadia for joining us today. And I hope everyone stay well and stay safe, and good night.
Thank you, Chin.